The market had changed since the start of the war. Vendors were few and prices were insane. Fears that the Kraken may enter the hub were high, but Miss Lily had given him a shopping list. Essentials mostly, though she had also given him some money of his own. Nathan had spent the first few weeks of his money, but he was trying to save up now. His new clothes were his first purchase. The sweeping coat was like a robe. Added to a silvery breastplate and leather armour, he really felt like a knight now. A knight with an enchanted sword. His sword stick was the first thing Miss Lily improved for him, weaving her magical code into the wood. It twitched like the bush, but it was safe for him to wield. She had also woven her magic with him, giving him special powers. He could leap and run like Miss Lily, and his eyes could see things he never imagined. He could see the names of people, doors hidden in the landscape, the warmth of life, and the paths to places near and far. This new land was much like his village, though it did not look so. The vendors were very much the same. People were still people, even if they were giant cats, mechanical men, or fairies. Even the Kraken were a sort of people, though all he knew of them was from the news. Though he had seen one, a week before the war started. There was a belter Kraken in the market, buying art. Miss Lily had explained to him that this world was a virtual, and there were physical worlds as well, but he had never lived in such a place, though Runara was built to appear physical, something that was not true of all virtual worlds, something he had learned his first day among the candy trees. The flavourless candy and identical trees were a shock back then, but not so surprising as the fact that he didn't need to eat, though he could. And you only need to buy a food item once, so you can copy it as many times as you wanted, or build your own food items, though his attempts to weave the code had been a disaster. Martin's Wares was closed. Nathan, standing before the entrance, wondered where he was going to get the VTP interfacing nodes on the list now. The only option was the forest market, though Miss Lily didn't like him going in there. It's full of unsavoury types. But he had his sword and armour, even his pocket dragon, so he felt safe. The forest market was not in the Candy Forest. It was in the Welders Forest, a public realm of sorts, and it was the surrounding environment of a residential realm. The market wasn't strictly illegal, but it moved around the forest a lot and employed the code to hide it from most, though he knew how to find it and get in. Nathan quickly gathered the remaining items from the main square before going to Welder's Realm. He could see the paths laid out in his eyes, so he turned off the road into the forest, weaving among the tree-sized flowers. He ran. It was the power he loved the most. He was faster than any horse on Runara, effortlessly evading blossoms and their roots. He was soon at the edge of the market, its invisible wall before him. Making an arcane gesture with his hand, he opened the wall, allowing him to enter the hidden space. It was busy, always was. The war hadn't dissuaded people from coming here. Its hidden nature suggested safety from the Kraken, but Nathan knew that the virtual could be attacked from the physical, just like the physical can be attacked from the virtual. Only the form of attack changes. It didn't take long to find the VTP nodes, though the price was high, 3 times the usual, so he chose to barter, something he was good at, soon negotiating a 20% discount. He purchased the nodes and turned to depart. Miss Lily was always looking for people, searching for criminals from all over. She was good at it, and provided the information to bounty hunters. She made a decent living from it, enough to have her own home and support Nathan as well. But she had told him he was too young to hunt bounties, and too unskilled to search the code. Nathan couldn't argue with the second one, but he was sure he would take a bounty or two. He was barely 2 paces from the stall when he saw one. A face from her board, someone she was trying to track down. The bounty was 12,000. She charged 5% for her intel. so plenty of people paid her. But this bounty, he was still on a list to find. His name was concealed, so most could not see it, but Nathan's magic eyes could still identify the words. He was looking at attack programs, so finding a place to sit and summoning forth a snack from his inventory, he watched and waited. Kellor was wanted for murder and robbery, the Jupiter Colonial Union offering a reward. Nathan wasn't a registered hunter, so he would have to take the mine to Miss Lily. She could cash it in. Kellor eventually moved on without purchasing a program, but he didn't leave the forest market, going to 4 other vendors in search of attack programs, finally purchasing one from the last stall. Nathan could see the program as he took it, a fairly common design of attack hound, an aggressive defense program, but no match for his pocket dragon. After purchasing his program, Kellor headed for the wall, so Nathan casually sauntered that way. But Kellor stopped at the wall, loitering at its perimeter. Nathan's mind raced. Did he notice he was being followed? Or was he waiting for someone? He didn't get much time to consider, arriving at the wall shortly afterward. It seemed like it was going to be a problem, so Nathan walked to the wall and brought forth the exit. Kellor immediately smiled and ran through the gate, though only a few paces before he was walking again. He didn't know the code for the wall. That was the only explanation. He had to wait for someone else to open it. Nathan was in the same situation when Miss Lily first brought him here, but she soon gave him the code for the gate, allowing him to come and go as he pleased. This was perfect. Kellor would not be able to run back into the market, and the residential district had police. He would have no place to run. Following him out, Nathan glanced back at the gate, making sure that nobody else used it before it closed. Once he was sure, he sped his walk, closing the gap between them. Nathan was within arm's reach before Kellor reacted, throwing out his hound program and breaking into a run, much like the speed that Nathan was once limited to. So he drew his sword and cast his pocket dragon at the hound. Pocket dragon was just that, a dragon attack program that he kept in his pocket. As he cast it, the dragon grew in size, becoming as large as a horse, its flaming red scales and powerful wings designed for him by Nathan and woven to code by Miss Lily. The hound would be no match for it. Nathan didn't stop to watch. Running after Kellor, he caught up in moments. Swinging his sword stick, it twitched violently in his hand, landing a blow on Kellor's back. The impact caused him to twitch wildly, his legs and arms flailing in impossible directions for a moment, causing him to crash to the ground. Leaping onto his back to pin him down, Nathan rifled through his inventory. The sound of his dragon defeating the hound died away. He found what he was looking for, a mind cage that Miss Lily had given him just in case. But as he retrieved it, Kellor rolled over, forcing Nathan off his back and drawing another hound, this time throwing it directly at him. Nathan raised his sword stick to the hound, swinging at it, but the hound was quick, darting aside and lunging forward. The hound was not powerful enough to overcome his armour, but it allowed Kellor to get to his feet and run again, though it bought him seconds only. As soon, the pocket dragon descended on the hound, allowing Nathan to resume the chase. Quickly catching up, he leapt at Kellor, a 10-meter gap in an instant, knocking him to the ground, throwing the cage moments after landing. Nathan watched as it wrapped around him. He fought it, but the only defense was to weave the code. So he was soon entrapped, pressed into a small glowing cube, his name floating above it. Sitting in the grass with the cube in hand, Nathan smiled to himself. This was his first bounty, and it went well. Soon, his dragon was beside him again, so he pulled it back into his pocket and got to his feet, stowing the cage in his inventory once more. He turned to head back for home, walking through the trees to the main hub gate. He stepped into the hub to a new and terrifying sight. The Kraken. The square was under attack. Dozens of Kraken were swarming across the bridge, attacking the main hub. The security programs were fighting them, trying to hold them back. Diving for cover, Nathan began to crawl, keeping among the flower beds and shrubs. He could see the fighting. He saw 3 people get de-rezzed, their bodies and minds decimated by attacks. 2 were locals, but 1 was a Kraken. They were not invulnerable, but they were terrifying, sleek black metal exteriors, flashed with intensely bright pulses, making them difficult to see clearly. Their tentacles were barbed and carried weapons, infectious attack programs designed to destroy your body and trap your mind. Nathan was close to the Candy Tree path when the cover ended, so he leapt into a run. He covered half the distance before his path was blocked, a single Belter Kraken landing before him, its bright flashes and grinding noises as violent as its movements. Lashing out with 4 tentacles, it clearly wanted to prevent escape. Skidding to a stop, he drew his sword, gripping it tightly in both hands. He was ready for this. He had already defeated an opponent today. He was a knight. The Knight of the Candy Forest. And it was time to be a hero.